Oh noes, hellos, and welcome back to another videos. Today we'll be taking a look at the top 10 cards in the Legends set. Oh yes, we're going back to the good old days. And I'm back with the video series. So it took a while and I had to back up a bunch of files on my computer, but I finally got it working and now we can do the video series again. So, yippee, I guess. I love doing this series actually. So for this, we'll actually be starting off with honorable mentions because there were so many good cards that I just had to include some pretty degenerate ones for you guys. They didn't quite make the list, but we're close. So I'll give it to All Hallows Eve, just kind of just like Living Death, but a little bit worse. So I didn't include it on this list because of that reason, and the other cards were just broken in itself. So yeah, I just decided not to include that. And then we have Angus Mackenzie, which is just a really good commander card. I didn't include it for this list because of that reason. It's just seen only one place to play, and that's in commander. And yeah, I'm not really counting commander, but I kind of am at the same time. I just think, Angus Mackenzie decks are just dumb and they sit on fog. So yeah, and then we got Divine Intervention. I didn't include this one on the list because it doesn't actually technically win you the game. It just makes the game just zero IQ because you win by tying the game. And in a multiplayer format, it's just dumb. You just tie the game. What do you count that as a win? I don't understand how you would count that. And then I got In the Eye of Chaos because basically it's stacks on crack, but you're also affecting yourself a lot. So, well, at least you can, your counter spells won't be countered. Yay, I guess. And then we got the Abyss. The Abyss is just an eponymous card for being broken because, it's just basically like if you took Doom Foretold and, yeah, you basically just don't have a board state of creatures. So they're just going to get sacked, basically. Alright, so we'll actually start off with the real list, and I have on the list a pretty interesting one that I kind of run into in Commander. It's not even that, like, broken, but, I just had to include it on the list because it has a pretty hindering effect, and that's Moat. So it's 2 white white, and creatures without flying can attack. Pretty simple. Now this card is powerful for one reason. It's because yeah, ground support in green. Oh, there's nothing that flies in green, so you're kind of screwed unless, well, of course, you have enchantment removal, which a lot of creatures do. So why is this card still powerful? Well, it's the annoying fact that it's an enchantment, which makes it really good. And even in certain decks that are still running green, it's a hindering effect because if they can't just find that enchantment removal, basically flyers are going to get to you left and right. So this effect's kind of broken and doesn't really, we don't see this effect anymore because of how broken it is. So they just decided not to print like Moat ever. Um, they did have Magus of the Moat, so I will give them that for at least toning it down. It was a creature, not like an enchantment. But yeah, this card was broken, and it didn't really see a lot of play. So I'm just putting it on the list because of the powerful effect it had. So yeah, there's that. And at number 9, we have another kind of a spell that costs two and something. So two green and a green. Blech, I keep mixing up my words. For Eureka. No, seriously, that's the card's name is Eureka. All right. So what does this piece of crap do? This degenerate just shouldn't have never been printed card. So what this does is it's basically like Hypergenesis. So if you don't know what Hypergenesis is, well, let's read this card so we can give you a little bit of insight of what the card actually does. So, starting with you, each player may put a permanent card from his or her hand onto the battlefield. Repeat this process until no one puts a card onto the battlefield. So it's basically like Hypergenesis. So why did it not see that much play? Well, this didn't see a lot of play because they were afraid of the other powerful creatures and other enchantments and stuff. There was prevalent decks like Necropotence, and there was also Red Deck Winds. They didn't really want to get anything out. However, there was actually a Eureka deck that cheated like powerful creatures like, of course, the Eldrazi. But that wasn't all it was put into. It was also put into sideboards. If you didn't have like, okay, let's say there's someone playing like you know, like contamination. Okay. Well, not contamination, I guess. Like, okay, let's for like, okay, if you're playing like green and a bunch of other colors, you would have the sideboard in this card if you're not going to play, you know, show and tell. They would play this as a second copy as show and tell, so that way, you know, you can get it going again. There'd basically be two show. It'd be like basically having 8 show and tells in your deck, and they would actually splash green, so that way they can get the same effect off of what Eureka does. It's just a little bit better because you know, yeah, it's broken. And yeah, there was Hypergenesis decks in Modern, and that archetype had to be banned pretty quickly, and they just banned the card outright. So I have it on this list because of the effect, honestly. So we have another green card. Oh yes, and it draws you cards. What? Because we have at number 8, Sylvan Library for 1 and a green, and it's an enchantment, of course. Because why the hell not? But yeah, Sylvan Library. This broke the color buy in a big way, actually, because green didn't actually used to have a lot of draw effects. Even back in the day, I'm pretty sure. So, what does this do exactly? Well, if you guys are familiar with the card, it's at the beginning of your draw step, you may draw an additional card. If you do, choose 2 cards in your hand drawn this turn. For each of those cards, pay 4 life, or put that card on top of your library. Basically, you're just drawing 2 extra cards in your upkeep. So, why do people like this card in green decks? Well, number 1, it has card draw in green, and you get to draw 3 cards and just pay that life. So it's like a fixed version of Necropones, kind of. Number 2, green didn't have a lot of draw effects, so this was the only reliable source for it. And number 3, it's an enchantment, and it's really hard to get rid of. So, yeah, this was played in a lot of decks where green lacked, you know, basically draw. And this was also played in green aggro decks back in the day, so that way they can ensure they get their big creatures out. Basically, these big creatures with phasing, that have trample or rampage, now they can just shove down the opponent's throat and kill them pretty easily. And you can get to those cards with Sylvan Library. Because really, honestly, didn't really care about their life total. Back in the day, it was just combos and combos and combos galore. So yeah, and this card kind of sees play, but not really, because green is kind of pushed out of Vintage. So, I don't know, maybe there's some decks out there that play this card still. But, who knows. It's just a card that's still powerful today. It's played in Commander. It's like a Commander staple, basically. And that's why I have it on this list. And then now we move on to the blue cards, but they're still enchantments, of course. And we have Invoke Prejudice for basically Omniscience mana minus the converted mana cost. So it's just 4 blue mana. Insane, right? I know. Now, why I didn't put in Eye of Chaos? Well, that affects everyone. What does Invoke Prejudice do? It affects only one person, and that's your opponent. So if opponent casts a summon spell that does not match the color of one of his or her creatures under your control, that spell is countered, unless they pay an additional X. So they basically pay the casting cost again, which they probably won't unless it's a mana dork, then maybe. So yeah, this card is pretty broken. You just can't play that freaking Vorinclex that you always wanted to play. It's just gonna get countered, and you're gonna have to pay double the mana. Yeah, I kind of don't want to do that. I'd rather just let it get countered, or just not play it at all. Because honestly, yeah. So, what would you do against this piece of crap? Well, you could run a little card called Cavern of Souls, so you can make your creature spells uncounterable. And yeah, that would shut down this piece of crap pretty easily. It's still pretty broken though of what the effect it does, because damn, it just shuts down like green. It's like really, really hard. Well, basically multicolored decks that are running green, like probably Fires of Yami decks would have a troublesome time with this. So yeah, I would expect them to get shut down with this card. So basically, if they're playing a monocolored deck, you don't run this card. No, absolutely not. So you would run this probably against, you know, Gruul or, you know, Orzhov. And yeah, basically just put this card and their whole day would be ruined. And that's why I have it on this card. I have it on this list. Oh god. And we're if Legends is broken, let's just get that straight, okay? Legends is broken. This set is my favorite set, however, though, because of, you know, the value and the nature of the set. I really like it for its, you know, its legend theme and stuff. I really like it for artwork too. But yeah, this card was broken. we're just going to move on to more broken cards, so get ready. Because number 6 is a doozy to read, and I hate reading this card every time I see it. So, it's Chains of Mephistopheles, coming at number 6. And guess what? It's an enchantment. So, you get the theme here. All the enchantments in this set are pretty broken. So, this is Chains of Mephistopheles. I don't even know what to say about that. Mephistopheles? Like, I'm just going to call it that. So, it's 1 black for that line of text. Let's just read this very slowly, and we're going to explain how this card works, okay? So just focus on my words. Only my words. Alright, let's just digest this all at once. If a player would draw a card, except for the first one he or she draws his or her turn, or draw step, each turn, that player discards a card instead. If a player discards a card this way, he or she draws a card. If the player doesn't discard a card this way, he or she puts a top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So, what does this do? So let's give you a scenario here. Okay, so if you would draw your first card, basically your draw step, you just draw it instead as regular. Now, if you have basically, let's say you have a Phyrexian Arena. Okay, on your upkeep, you draw that card. You don't do anything with it. Just draw it. On your draw step, because technically it doesn't say, it's worded so weird. So basically, it's your first card drawn. It says draw step, but there's an errata to it, so it's not really your draw step. It's basically the first card you draw each turn. So, if you draw that card during your draw step, you have to basically, okay, because I don't know necessarily how this works. I'd have to read more of the rules. You just draw it, discard a card. That's basically the whole effect. Now, let's give a scenario where you have an effect where you discard a card, and let's say you have no cards in your hand. Okay. Okay, let's just give that a thing. If you have no cards in your hand and you were to draw a card and you can't discard a card, you basically mill the top card of your library. That's basically how the whole thing works. Like, goddamn, that's my understanding of this card. And this card is powerful for that reason because it confuses the hell out of people. Yes, I really did make that a clause for this card to be on number 6. So let's move on before our brains explode. And let's move on to number 5, which is Land Tax. Oh, this card. Yeah, this card was pretty broken back in the day, and it was played on a lot of white decks that would try to get benefits off of, thinning their deck down. And it's only 1 white for this enchantment. Yes. So at the beginning of upkeep, you basically search for 3 lands and put them into your hand. They have to be basic lands, mind you. And then you just shuffle your library. Just a broken card in itself. It just thinned your deck out. It didn't really matter if you got those lands. What it did is basically thin your deck out, and what you would do is just discard those lands, and yeah, you would basically never be mana screwed, or mana flooded, I would assume. That would be the word. And yeah, this is broken, honestly. And this card should have never been printed, and it's been reprinted in Battle Bond, of course. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this card. Because we're going to move on to something I personally like, and that's number 4, is Karakas. Oh yes, Karakas. So, why is this card so powerful, you may ask? Well, Vintage, Legacy, there's Gristlebrand's. You know a good way to get rid of those Gristlebrand decks? You play Karakas. You know what you do with that Karakas? You activate its second ability, return that motherfucker to its hand. Booyah! Yeah, basically this card sees play in Vintage in sideboards if people are playing Gristlebrand decks or Reanimator. Because most Reanimator decks will actually put out Gristlebrand or that other dude or woman. I don't even know at this point. I don't follow the Vintage format. But basically, Karakas is just a broken land, and it adds you white mana, even if you don't need to use that ability. So, yeah, it's just played in sideboards and Vintage. If people are playing Gristlebrand decks or Show and Tell, you can always bounce that card back to their hand. It's not like they're casting it like with an Emrakul. You can just bounce it back to their hand. There you go. This is a pretty broken card, and it's probably never going to be reprinted. So on to number 3. Oh, number 3. I have a personal story with this one. It's Nether Void. And it's 3 black for enchantment. And whenever a player plays a spell, casts a spell, counter it unless they pay 3. Oh, you can see where this is going. This is played in Death and Taxes in Commander. Most importantly, though, you can combo this with Boseiju, One Who Shelters All, and you could just play the game as normal, and you don't even need to pay a 3, because your spells are uncounterable, basically. So yeah, this is a pretty broken card. It wasn't really seeing a lot of play, and I just put it on this list because of that effect. That effect is just brutal. Okay, let's just get that straight. Let's not pay 3. Just don't cast a spell. Just leave it alone. God, to play something for 1 mana, you have to pay 4? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, you're insane, right? You want me to spend 1 mana and it's gonna cost 4. Okay, I'm done here. This should have made it on number 2, but I gave number 2 to some land that really needed the attention, and that's Tabernacle Pendrell Vale. And yeah, this card. Okay, so the problem why people say this card isn't that powerful is because, well, it affects both of you. Ah, but you don't understand the law of taxing things. So when there's death and taxes, you want things to die. The way things die is if you play this on turn 1, and your opponent is playing a token deck, and basically they're screaming their head off because they can't play their deck. I had a story where a friend was just playing a token deck, yada yada yada. And he was like, okay, I play my land. Alright, I'm gonna get my token generation going up. He plays an Elvish Mystic, it passes the turn. I was like, okay, I'm gonna play Tabernacle. It's like, oh god. Oh, this is not good. And he's like, alright. It's not too bad, okay? We're still in the game. We're still good. And then he's like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna leave. Elvish Mystic is gone. Okay, I'll just play my second land. Alright. I'm gonna pass the turn. Okay. Alright. Play blue. Play Soul Ring. I'm like, well, he already has mana acceleration. I don't. It's like, okay. What am I supposed to do here? That's basically what he's saying. Like, because the whole deck he had was just mana acceleration and kind of disrupting opponents. Basically every blue deck ever. So this card, I would give number 2 because of that personal note. Because of the way Death and Taxes work. This is a perfect example of Death and Taxes. Because even with Nether Void, if you have a board state with Nether Void out, it doesn't really matter if you cast spells. But however, with Tabernacle Pendrell Vale, you can play this on turn 1. Besides, Nether Void. Unless you get the Dark Ritual. Okay, you can play it on turn 2. Whatever. But yeah, it's just broken. Piece of crap. I really don't like Tabernacle. It's on the reserve list, so you'll never see it. And here we go. Number one. You probably all saw this coming if you catch up with Legends. Mana Drain. This is the first printing of Mana Drain. So, Mana Drain. This is supposed to be a fixed version of counter target spell. Now, funny enough, they made this card to actually be fixed because of mana burn. So, if you were to counter a spell, you would add this. So, if someone played, I don't know, on Omniscience, okay, you countered a spell, you add 10 mana to your mana pool. 10 colorless to be exact. And you'd be like, okay, I'm like, oh, but I have barely anything to play. I'll just play the mana dork and be like, oh, all this mana, I'm gonna take this much damage. Ah! But you know what they did? They got rid of mana burn, and this card became broken. And actually, I think it even got restricted in Vintage. Not too sure though, but I'm pretty sure it did. So yeah, Mana Drain is pretty broken because of what it does in a nutshell. And they kept this card in for no apparent reason. They just said, okay, fuck it, we're just gonna reprint it, whatever. Broken. We shouldn't have never printed it. And yeah, that's the list. So sorry, this was a fairly quick one because I have to go pretty soon. So I just wanted to make this quick video. I wanted to return the series with a bang, and this is how I did it. So a pretty good series overall. So anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, and peace.